Hey everybody, my name's Patar, and this is my War Within Holy Paladin guide for Season 1. The first thing I want to mention is that this video guide is being released in conjunction with a written guide, which I have linked in the description below. And the written guide is going to have all the wealth of information that you could ever want written down. I've got stuff about basic Holy Paladin things, what's our rotational priority, what do all the talents do? What build should I run? What are these hero talent things that I heard about? I've got my talents there for you ready to copy and paste if that's all you care about. I've got stuff about stat priority, honor gear, conquest gear, crafting, tier sets. What do I do every week? There's too much. I'm overwhelmed. I've got you covered in this written guide. So because of that, in this video guide, I don't want to spend too much time on kind of the basic stuff like what are my talents, what's my gear. I'm going to do that a little bit, but I really would just refer to the written guide. It's got a lot more information there that you can use as a reference later on. But we're going to briefly cover all those things, and then at the end of the guide, we're going to go into 3 different arena games that are very different, and they showcase kind of some of the basic things that you need to get you started for Holy Paladin. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, the first thing that I want to talk about very briefly is just some fundamentals of what it means to heal as Holy Paladin in PvP situations, especially Arena. There are 4 basic things that you need to know if you're going to try to heal as Holy Paladin. One is we have Holy Power. So in addition to mana, we have another resource called Holy Power. Certain abilities build Holy Power, certain abilities spend Holy Power. And your main healing rotation is going to consist of building Holy Power. Here I'm going to Holy Shock, I can cast Flash of Light, and then once you have at least 3 Holy Power, you can use a Spender. So building up Holy Power and then spending it to heal is how you're going to be doing spending most of your time as Holy Paladin in PvP. The next thing to know about is something called Infusion of Light. So what Infusion of Light does is when you get a crit with Holy Shock, which I'm trying to do right now, there it goes. You get this buff, Infusion of Light. So it empowers one of your next button presses, either your Flash of Light, it costs less mana, Holy Light does increased healing, or your Greater Judgment gets a bigger absorb. And then another piece of the healing picture for Holy Paladin are beacons of light. So in the build that I'll show you later, you're going to have 2 beacons. So you're going to have Beacon of Light and then another beacon called Beacon of Faith. And they both do the same thing. Basically, whenever you do any type of healing, including overhealing, it splashes a portion of that healing onto your beacon target. So this is the main way that Holy Paladins are able to heal kind of AoE rot type of damage. And then the last piece of Holy Paladin healing is our use of cooldowns. And it's very important to keep in mind all the various healing cooldowns that you have as Holy Paladin, because rotating them effectively is basically the skill cap of this spec. So, we've got stuff to mitigate damage. We've got Aura Mastery. We can empower our Devotion Aura. Right now it's 3%. In PvP, you press Aura Mastery, that goes up to 24% damage reduction for your entire team. It's really, really strong. We also have Blessing of Sacrifice. This is a 30% damage reduction. With talents, it's actually closer to 40%. And it's a 2-minute cooldown, but it's a big damage reduction that you can use on your allies. We also have Blessing of Protection. It's a full physical immunity. Usually gets purged in PvP, but it's still really strong. And no one else really has a way to remove physical debuffs on a friendly target like that. We have some shorter CD cooldowns like Tears Deliverance. This is something that you're going to want to cast almost all the time. This puts a little heal over time on you, and it buffs the healing of your main skills. This is usually cast alongside with Hand of Divinity, gives you some instant holy lights. So, you get an infusion proc, it buffs your holy light. You have your Hand of Divinity, this buffs your holy light, and then you have Tears Deliverance, which also buffs your holy light. So you cast 2 of those, and you're going to do some big chunky healing, which is really the role that Paladin fills. And then you have some other things. You have Barrier of Faith, which procs this Dawn Light. That's part of your hero talents. Again, I'll get into that later. You've got Divine Toll, which casts a bunch of Holy Shocks, and yeah. So basically, the healing philosophy of Holy Paladin is you've got Holy Power builders, Holy Power spenders. You've got Infusion of Light procs that you can use to buff your casted heals. You've got Beacon of Light that you can use to splash healing onto other people to heal in AoE situations. And you've got healing cooldowns like Wings, Divine Toll, Tears Deliverance, Barrier of Faith, and things like that that you really want to stagger and space out to maximize your healing. Okay, next up, I'm going to briefly talk about talents. Now, again, as I said in the beginning of the video, this video guide is released in conjunction with a written guide linked in the description below. And for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to let you look at the guide if you're curious about the class talents on the left or the spec talents on the right. I have a good write-up for all those things in there. For the video, we're going to focus on the hero talents. So this is the kind of the new shiny feature for the War Within. Holy Paladin has a choice between two different options, Herald of the Sun or Lightsmith. This guide is going to focus strictly on Herald of the Sun, and that's because after a lot of testing that I did on beta, doing beta shuffles, Herald of the Sun just outperforms in so many different ways. It's easier to use. It's kind of already baked in your healing rotation. There's no extra buttons that you have to have keybinds for. So for all those reasons, I just highly recommend playing Herald of the Sun. It's not to say that Lightsmith is bad. It's just Herald of the Sun is just kind of edges it out in most ways. But if you're curious about a Lightsmith guide, I can certainly throw that together. So just let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. But for now, let's talk about Herald of the Sun. So the primary kind of gimmick with Herald of the Sun are these buffs called Dawn Lights. And what this is when you cast this talent, so either Holy Prism or Barrier of Faith, you get this buff called Dawn Light. So this is where your next Holy Power spender applies Dawn Light. And so now I've applied it on myself, and it's just it's our strongest heal over time effect, and it radiates 8% of that onto other players. So, and you can have 2 out every 30 seconds. This is really strong. You get 2 Dawn Lights out on your teammates. They're getting healed over time, and that healing is splashing onto everyone else. So it's a good way to do kind of radiate AoE healing. Another strong feature of Herald of the Sun is this Eternal Flame spell. So this is a replacement to Word of Glory, and it does the same amount of healing up front, so it has a big chunky heal up front, and then it leaves a little hot heal over time on you to in addition. And as well, it also has increased effect on yourself. And Holy Paladin's always getting trained in arena, so anytime we're getting buffed for self heals, that's great. Keep moving on down, we have Blessing of Anshe or Lingering Radiance. Lingering Radiance isn't that great. All it does is once Dawn Light expires, it'll just leave an Eternal Flame on your target. That's not that great because the heal over time of Eternal Flame isn't that strong. But really, we don't take that because Blessing of Anshe is actually really strong. So I highly recommend you track this buff so that you're not wasting it, because this is going to give you a chance to have a super duper buffed Holy Shock whenever your healer damage over time effect ticks. So whenever your Tears Deliverance or Dawn Light or this thing called Sunseer ticks, then you have a chance to have a really beefy Holy Shock. This could be hit. I've seen 2 million, 3 million Holy Shocks with this buff. And as it happens, I happen to have a WeakAura that does track when you get one of these procs, and that's going to be, again, you guessed it, in the description. So check that out. Moving along, Solar Grace. This is not a crazy throughput talent, but it's nice. You get a little bit of haste whenever you're applying Dawn Lights, and that can stack. On this side, we have this talent Luminosity. This is free crit chance for Holy Shock. Nothing wrong with that. Moving down, Sunseer. As I said, this is whenever you crit with Holy Shock, which you want to be critting as much as possible, it's going to create another little heal over time. Second Sunrise. Your Holy Shock has a chance to cast again at 30% effectiveness. This is great because Holy Shock is really the the main engine of how we do all of our healing. It's our main generator. It does a lot of healing itself, and it procs all these different things like Infusion and now Second Sunrise, Sunseer. So this is a great talent. On the left-hand side, you have another choice node, Morningstar or Gleaming Rays. Gleaming Rays, again, it just underperforms compared to Morningstar. Gleaming Rays is when you have a Dawnlight out. Your spenders deal 5% additional damage or healing, but that's just simply outperformed by Morningstar. Basically, every few seconds, the healing of your next Dawnlight is increased by 5%, stacking up to 10 times. So the maximum effect of this is a 50% increase to Dawnlight, as you can see here. So this is a huge buff, and you just want to take that all the time. The last choice node is a choice between two different movement speed buffs. This one, Illumine, Dawnlights on enemies reduce movement speed, Dawnlights on allies increase movement speed. This is not that great, in my opinion. I prefer Will of the Dawn. This just, while you're healthy, you have increased movement speed, and then if you get brought down to low HP, you get another movement speed buff. So again, that's just nice. And actually, if you combine that with this Obduracy talent, you actually end up getting a lot of passive speed, so you can kind of scoot around pretty quickly in the arena on foot. Aurora is a talent that gives you free Divine Purpose whenever you press Barrier of Faith or Holy Prism. And so this is great because Divine Purpose gives you a free spender. And pressing Barrier of Faith makes it so that your next spender prize a Dawnlight. So every time you press Barrier of Faith, you're guaranteed to get a completely free Dawnlight out there. That's also an Eternal Flame, so that's great. This is a great talent. Makes the rotation a lot smoother. And finally, we have Sun's Avatar. This is where whenever you press wings, you spit Dawnlights all around you on your allies and some on enemies. And then it creates these laser beams between you and your Dawnlight targets that damages enemies and heals allies in between them. And it looks pretty cool. I'm going to show you what this looks like here. So I'm going to press wings in this crowd of people. Instantly creates some laser beams, four laser beams between allied targets. I'll create another one by pressing Barrier of Faith. And so you can just get a lot of laser beams going at once. And people that are standing in between here are going to take damage or get extra healing. So it just makes wings an even more powerful cooldown. And it's really fun. It fits into the cool kind of fantasy of Herald of the Sun. So in summary, Herald of the Sun is great. All these talents just make the Holy Paladin rotation feel really smooth, and I recommend that you try it out. Okay, now a brief word about stats and gear in the War Within. I'm hanging out here in Dornogal. I'm in the bottom part of the city. To my left, we got some Honor, Conquest, War Mode, vendors in that room. Over here, we got some PvP dummies, so you can check out my stats and full Honor gear. And really quickly, the quick stat priority for Holy Paladin, you want around, as close to 30% verse as you can get, between 20 and 30% crit, and then basically however much haste and mastery you want to fit your playstyle. More haste is going to mean faster globals, shorter cast times, but your heals are going to hit for a little bit less because you're sacrificing some mastery. Mastery is actually our best point-for-point throughput stat, but it's not by a lot, so you don't need to prioritize it, too much. If you prefer a little bit more haste, then that should be fine. With that in mind, you can kind of stat yourself out with the gear over here. Right now I've got full Honor gear. You can see I've got crit everywhere I can get it, and if I don't have crit, I want enough haste to get, for me, I like around 8%, and then after that, just, start stacking mastery. When the season starts, there's going to be a lot more to think about in terms of gearing. There's this Conquest vendor here is going to have Conquest pieces for you to buy. You're going to want to fill out your tier set eventually, pick the slots for that. The tier set this season is pretty straightforward and pretty good. So the 2 set is increased Holy Shock healing, reduced Holy Shock cooldown, and then the 4 set is whenever you press Holy Shock, it buffs the next initial heal of your Word of Glory, for us, Eternal Flame, because we're Herald of the Sun enjoyers. So eventually we will want the 4 set, and then mixed in with that is going to be some crafted pieces. and crafted PvP gear in the War Within is a little bit different, and it's not too complicated, but it's kind of boring for a video, and I know you guys just want to come and see some arena action, which will be the next section. So basically, you're going to be buying these heraldries. You're going to go to the crafting guy, put in some orders. This is covered in detail in my written guide again. Just check it out. It's in the description below. It's got everything you'd want to know about crafted gear, tier gear, war mode gear, all that good stuff. There's a whole kind of cheat sheet on what you should be doing week by week in the season, so you don't kind of misspend your conquest and all that good stuff. So I highly recommend checking that out. That's all the time I want to spend for stats and gear right now in the video. Coming up next, we're going to look at 3 different arena games and kind of see what I'm doing in those games and walking through what's happening, why I'm doing it, so that you can understand how Holy Paladin actually looks like in a live game. The first game we're going to look at is myself healing 2 wizards. One is a Shadow Priest, one is an Affliction Warlock, versus 2 melee. One is an Assassination Rogue, and the other is an Unholy Death Knight. And this is to give you an idea of how to deal with double melee pressure when you have the support of 2 wizards. So let's take a look. First thing I do, as always, is I try to find a pillar so I don't get stopped and cast Tears, and also cast my Hand of Divinity. Now, it's okay if you didn't get both of those off. I know they want to do a go, so I press a lot of buttons before. I'm kidneyed here, but I pre-walled, I pre-AM'd, I pre-Battlemaster Trinket, so I don't have to press anything in that kidney. I'm completely fine. And I still have both of my Hand of Divinity charges. I go ahead and use them now just to get the most Tears extension, even though it's almost all completely overhealing. And so now I've traded wings, I've traded Aura Mastery, I've traded my wall and my Battlemaster Trinket. But I'm sitting pretty much okay. I'm off Stun DR, so the rogue sends another kidney. And I'm considering about pressing something here, but I know I have healing out. I have my Barrier of Faith, which means I'm going to get my Dawn Lights. So I decide to greed, and it works out. And basically, I'm just trying to live and let my wizards do damage as best I can and have them basically win the game for me. So I have a pure defensive mindset right here. I go for a rep on someone to peel for myself. They end up stopping it. That's okay. I get a nice grip from my Shadow Priest. I'm back in mid. They have to use some mobility spells to reconnect with me, but the game's looking okay. So now I get blinded by the DK. I decide to just bubble it, stay ahead of the damage, and it turns out to be a good decision because we won the game. So basically, in this situation, you just want to have a pure defensive mindset, heal your wizards, and let them win the game for you. You're using your Hodge defensively. Just trade cooldowns well, and you'll have a good chance of winning the game. Okay, in this next clip, we're going to look at healing a melee cleave versus a melee cleave. And in this situation, I'm healing a Windwalker Monk and a Fury Warrior. I immediately take an aggressive position. I'm on the central pillar. I get my Tears up. I get my Hand of Divinity up. This lets me stay close to my teammates while also being close to the enemy, so I can, make plays if I need to. I immediately trinket the Paladin's Hodge. I have no problem with that. He's already bubbled. I throw a DR Hodge out of my trinket, and this Feral's trying to clone me or something, so I'm just trying to make sure to press some buttons. I wall, I sack my monk, I press Aura Mastery, and everyone's fine. I get gripped back in, and we're kind of a little low HP, so I press wings there. Everyone's topped up. We're looking good. They've already pressed their Berserk and Incarn, and the Paladin's pressed a lot of defensive cooldowns. He basically has nothing already. So now, in this position, all I've pressed is some healing cooldowns and my trinket, so I just want to make sure that we keep the momentum up and just don't throw in this position, right? So I see that the Paladin's coming over to Hodge me, and then he reps out. I have no trinket, but I'm remaining calm. I have some heal over time on my DPS, and I just, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, see if I need to press, and I don't. Now my monk's maimed here. I throw 1 Dawn Light, 2 Dawn Light on him, and it's not enough, so I just go ahead and press Lay on Hands. Damping's not too high, so it's a good press. And again, I just want to make sure that everyone's topped up before the next CC hits, which I think will be soon because I have a Feral Druid on me. And but it's looking good now. I have my warrior comes over to peel. He fears the warrior, gets the healer as well. I look for a rep off of the warrior's fear, and it would have sat, but they decided to do a little hard swap onto the healer, which is a good call. He doesn't have anything. He has to use bop on himself. So now the paladin really has no cooldowns left. There's no bops. There's no land hands. There's no bubble, and I have all of those things and my trinkets back. So we're really far ahead now. We just need to make sure that you're keeping everyone healthy, staying ahead of the damage, and like I said before, don't throw the game. I cast in Flash of Lights because I ran out of Holy Shock charges. I hodged the healer off cooldown, and actually, I saw that he was going to clone me, but I'm okay because I saw that DK was also doing his Abomination Limb. So I get cloned in the middle of the damage, everything's fine. We end up overlapping Bop and Rage Regen with my Warrior. No big deal because we just won the game. So if you haven't been able to tell already, basically the major difference when you're playing a melee cleave versus healing wizards is you need to be making aggressive plays to keep your team alive. So I'm immediately running to the central pillar so that I'm not too far or overexposed, and I'm just kind of rotating around the pillar, doing my usual Holy Paladin stuff, trading cooldowns, avoiding CC, and confidently pressing buttons to keep everyone healthy. Okay, the last game that we're going to look at is instead of a double caster or double melee, now I'm healing one of each, a so-called hybrid comp. So on my team, I have an assassination rogue and an elemental shaman. So one melee, one ranged, and I'm healing against a classic shadow play with a resto druid, affliction warlock, and shadow priest. And this is a bit of a long game, so you'll get to see kind of how that game plan evolves when you're playing Holy Paladin, and how challenging it can be to to live versus this comp. So they're doing a go on me. They have a soul rod on me. I'm sort of greeting. I'm pressing wings to live, but I'm trusting my heals. I have wings. I have daybreaks. We're basically okay. I actually divine toll as well. And similarly to how when I was healing double wizards, I want to basically just keep everyone healthy and let my DPS do their thing. It's similar here because Shadow Priest and Affliction Warlock is a very lethal combination, especially for a Holy Paladin. So you really don't want to get caught with your pants down, so to speak. So you need to make sure that you're playing defensively, not overextending, making sure that you're just keeping everyone alive, and hopefully your DPS can get the rest of the job done. So I'm not really worried too much about getting a lot of CC off, or I'm not like pushing in for hodges and not pushing in for reps. I'm basically just I hodge the lock here to just slow down the damage a bit. I'm not too worried that it even got dispelled. I'm just in live mode right now. And as we saw a few moments ago, I got the second Tears Up, second Hand of Divinity, and this is a bit of a sketchy moment, so I decided to bubble and dispel my rogue because he doesn't have anything else. He was still low, so I ended up pressing land hands. And so this is a bit of a scary moment in the game because I just used 2 forbearance cooldowns. I used bubble and I used lay on hands, but I really had to keep people alive. I get stunned here and now I have to trinket as well. I'm in danger of dying. The priest has his void ball on me, and I'm in danger of dying. Now when I'm silenced, you'll notice I press judge on somebody, and that's not because I'm playing judge dispel. I'm actually not in this case, but really what it is because judgment is a spell you can press while you're silenced, and it's going to do a little bit of healing with a greater judgment talent. So it's just basically some way that you can keep yourself active healing while you're silenced. So again, I'm forced across the map to kind of stay near my teammates, and it's those are usually the scariest moments of the game when I have to do that. And I also had no trinket or bubble, but the priest also didn't have any stun or silence, so it was safe to cross. And so this is, it's definitely stressful healing this comp, but you do have a lot of healing, and you just have to kind of stay calm and press your buttons confidently. So at this point, we don't have anything, and luckily my rogue realizes it, so he comes back to cover. I get my Hand of Divinity off. I cast those. We're just kind of playing catch up right now. You don't want to get too far behind. At this point, I also notice we're losing the mana game, so I have around 200k mana. The rest of Druid has about 400k mana. So we need to, work on that somehow. And so I ended up, people are pretty good HP. I'm out of combat. I go for a little drink. I don't realize that I got interrupted by, random damage, so I sit down again. And I get just a little sip, just a few moments of drinking, but you notice that was enough to, turn the tides of the mana battle, so to speak. So now he's in cat form. He's going to have to go look for a drink because he's losing on mana now. So they're trying to just close out the game before mana can be a win-loss condition. And I'm trying to now basically just, again, keep everyone alive. I have a mana lead. That's a good place to be into this comp. They have to play from behind. And again, excuse me, I'm getting some drinks. Just trying to cushion that lead a bit more. Everyone's high HP. Rogue's got some soul rot, got soul rot on him. They're doing a little go on him. So I have to stop drinking and go over to heal him. Luckily, his cloak comes back up and we get a nice grounding totem, so we recover there. And yeah, we're looking good. I'm basically just waiting for the game to end because I have a decent amount of mana, at least for another minute or so. The Resto Druid has no mana, and my team's doing too much damage for him to go for a drink. And so we get a nice stun into a restun, and the game's over. He doesn't have enough mana to press any of his buttons, and we win the game. And so in these situations, this is the quote-unquote long game. You have to think about, what are my win conditions? How do I secure the win under pressure? There's a lot of situations in that game where we had, we were behind on cooldowns, or everyone's really low HP. But it's just, working through your cooldowns, making sure you're not overlapping too much, and finding those little moments to get tiny amounts of mana back with drinks, so that you have, as another win condition, mana. And at the end, I had mana, he didn't, and that's why we won. And that's going to do it for the guide. I hope you learned something. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions about the video guide, what was I doing in those games, anything about the written guide, there's lots of information there. So if you have any questions about that, go ahead and let me know in the comments, or stop by my stream and say hi. We can chat there. And of course, I'm a new content creator. I'd really appreciate it if you can go through the motions, like, comment, subscribe on the video. It really does help. But until next time, I'm Patar. This is my Holy Paladin guide for the War Within Season 1, and I hope to see you on my stream. Take care.